Yeah, it's our podcast. We can talk about what we want.
Don't inject drunk.
Don't inject drunk. I wasn't drunk.
I've only done one nipple, literally one. You can probably talk from a personal basis about penile filler.
Yeah, he is so crazy. Hi, welcome to another episode of Beauty and the Brain, the podcast where we talk about all things aesthetics. I'm your co-host, Dr. Chris Croley.
And I'm Jerry Drinkard, family nurse practitioner. And together, Chris and I own Skin and Tonic, or med spa located in Pace, Florida.
We've been doing this podcast for a little while, and we really do always have fun when we're filming the episodes. But today I think we have a really interesting episode on odd places to put hyaluronic acid filler.
Oh. With social media out there, I think it shows all kind of people trying to either prove something new or invent the latest technique or introduce something new that's not on label to the aesthetic world. And so there's lots of strange places that people are using filler outside of the areas that it has FDA approval for. Certainly a lot different than the FDA approvals.
Yeah, these are very, very strange areas. So we're going to talk about that in this episode. So we have a lot of things to talk about when we talk about putting fillers and outside of the FDA approved areas. Before we jump into that though, let's just talk a little bit about where fillers are typically used.
I think the most common places that have on-label uses for filler, we'll just kind of start at the top and work our way down to the chin. So we now have FDA clearance for under-eye filler. Cheeks are very common. We're talking on-label, right?
On-label or off, just common areas.
So
it's our podcast. We can talk about what we want. So
common requested, but not necessarily common is nose. I was just going to kind of work my way down the face. Mid-face volumization is very popular. Lips is probably one of the most common, most requested, and chin augmentation and jaw augmentation. Those are kind of pretty
much
common.
In the face. I think people are familiar with fillers in the face. Like you said, the nose is not really a common one. It's definitely one of the riskier areas. And we talked about that in a prior podcast episode, that you really want to make sure that you kind of talk to your injector, that you get to know them in their training, because we know with nose filler, it is one of the more risky areas. Not only can you have some tissue necrosis, but even blindness from that. So we are really selective with who we place nose filler in our practice at Skin and Tonic. But some of the other areas are a little bit less risky. Anytime we're doing a medical procedure, there are obviously some risk, but we really do a lot of things to make sure that we keep our patients safe. And by staying kind of in the FDA approved on-label areas, we know that they've been studied in a large group of patients and shown to be safe.
The nose, while we're there, is to me one of the scariest places to inject, but also one of the most common, because back to social media, you can see some phenomenal results from it. It's a treatment that I myself do not offer at the clinic. Chris he ventures into that more than I do. I've had it personally as a treatment, but also as an injector and knowing the risk, I was horrified the second time that we did it. The first time, we talk about this in all of our classes, it was probably one of the first places I had dermal filler.
Yeah, because when we started, we kind of knew about vascular occlusions, and that's one of the complications that's taught in all of the aesthetic classes now. But 15 years ago, we touched on it a little bit, but it wasn't near the focus as it is today in the way we educate new providers.
Safety just wasn't addressed as much as what it is now.
So we took a class and we went back to Chicago. We were living in Chicago at the time. And when we got back, we set up our account. We ordered some product. And I think we got Juvederm at the time. Maybe it was the product we used. And literally, we did everything wrong. We always say, don't start with the nose. Make sure you have your emergency medication.
Don't inject drunk.
Don't inject drunk. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't drunk, for the record. Jerry might have had a few glasses of wine. We also recommend our patients not drink.
I was getting my freaking nose injected at our bar in our house.
We were doing this at our kitchen bar. Again, things that we do not recommend, that is incorrect. And we were lucky. We were really lucky because Jerry had 2 prior surgical rhinoplasties. I had minimal filler injection experience. We did not have the reversal medication needed should we run into a problem, nor did we even think about the problem. So we sit there, we did it, we had a beautiful result. I was so proud of...
No hyaluronic.
No hyaluronic, no, not at all. But again, we didn't really even think about it. And we were both. You were happy with your results. I was proud of my work. And then the more we learned, the more we were like, oh shit, what did we do? And we didn't do it again for years. Yeah, a long time.
13.
Yeah. And then we finally decided, hey, we need a little bit of correction. Are we going to try it? And he was a nervous wreck. We had all the emergency stuff. We had an ultrasound available. We did all the safety things. And even with all of that, it was still, we approached it with much trepidation, as we encourage any injector to do. So in terms of risk, it's one of the areas that we're asked to inject in the face, a little bit more risky, but some great results. What about, what are your thoughts on forehead filler?
I think it ranks right up there with nose filler. It's also a very risky area to inject. The vascularity in the forehead is one of those things that there's a lot of room for differences between different patients. And so, none of our anatomy is the same. And so we know an idea of where the vascular structures are, but I also think that it's one of those things like I'm really not fond of doing. Mm-hmm. I think it's requested a lot less than nose filler.
I think it's requested less because we don't talk about it a lot and patients don't see it as an option. But at least from what I see looking at some studies and reports and what's taught at some of the international conferences, this looks like a procedure that's performed in other countries.
We just watched a class recently.
Yeah, as commonly as, we perform nasolabial fold fillers here in the US. So it's certainly not an area that has an on-label indication for any of the products. But, over time, we know there's a lot of volume loss. There's changes to the shape of the skull. And so definitely some of the techniques that I'm kind of been playing with a little bit more and seeing some great results is placing some filler in the forehead or even up in the hairline to kind of replace some of that lost volume and kind of lift a little bit.
And you can really feminize a face when you're looking at like full face rejuvenation, whole face rejuvenation, like just giving that little extra curvature to the forehead really feminizes the face and gives it an attractive appearance. Yeah. So I think that is something that I just need more experience with because I do like the results.
Well, I mean, part of it's experience, but I would say that, you're as experienced or more than I. We took classes at the same time. We've been in this business the same length of time. And, everybody in this area knows that you're injecting many patients every single day. So I think experience is one thing, but why don't you talk about other things that we do specifically in our office for safety that may not be in every office?
So we have the fortunate that we have Clarius ultrasound technology in our office. Mm-hmm. That we do use. We use blunt tip cannulas for any of the risky areas. I think one of the main things is education regarding anatomy, knowing your anatomical landmarks when you start injecting these areas, palpation of arteries. And so I think there are a lot of things we can do to make this safer.
Yeah, I love the ultrasound. I think that's a growing area that people are interested in learning more about in the aesthetic industry in terms of providers. And I think from a patient standpoint, it's something that we can do when we go into these riskier areas to make it a little bit safer. Also making sure that your injector has plenty of the reversal medication and a network of people to call upon if they have any of those problems. So let's move a little bit from that. Those are kind of risky, but still I would say common areas, and talk about things that maybe people don't even know about. And then we get the random request here and there. And when we look it up, we see that more and more people are starting to request it. Start with the earlobes. Let's look at that.
Yeah, and we've done earlobes for several years. It was it's one of those things that I think kind of trends.
Yeah, it kind of comes in bundles, it seems like.
And so earlobes, it's a lot of ladies have stretched earring holes from wearing danglies or heavy earrings every years, or genetically, a lot of times people have a crease that just makes the ear appear to be, older or as you age, it deflates, just like a lot of other things. So injecting the preauricular area, the area, I call it my old man lines, right in front of my ear, or the earlobes, I think those are places that we don't commonly have people come in and ask for, but it's one of those things when you're tweaking the face, it's really nice to attention to detail.
Yeah, I mean, the earlobes especially, it's a relatively low risk procedure. It's super easy. It doesn't hurt a lot. It's a little bit of filler, and you can take years off a patient's age just by replacing a little bit of volume there. And oftentimes they don't think about it. And so only when they hear somebody, they see it on social media, if we put like a sign up in the office with a before and after, people all of a sudden think like, oh, I can get it there.
Yeah. When we're talking about like doing little tweaks on the face and the preauricular areas, another area that we learned about it years ago when we took a course from Dr. Runnels doing the vampire facelift, but is using dermal filler right on the brow bone to give like a little brow lift. I think people commonly know about it, getting a brow lift with the neurotoxin, but they don't think about getting a lift with using a dermal filler.
A little bit of filler there.
So you can augment that area and get a nice natural lift. It makes the light reflect off that area a little more. So that's another kind of quirky little spot to put, point to or whatever if you have some left.
So let's talk about some areas in the body that people may not know about. What are your thoughts on nipple filler?
Well, I've only done one nipple, literally one. I had a male patient that had one inverted nipple that was slightly inverted, and when we did his cheeks, I also did a little nipple filler and it turned out great. So that was my literally nipple experience, not nipples.
I mean, but we've had a few in the practice. So one of our business partners, Trinket Parker, has been doing permanent makeup for years. And actually, she's incredibly passionate about the permanent makeup for breast cancer survivors and breast cancer reconstruction. Her sister had breast cancer and unfortunately passed away. But this has been really a passion of hers for many, many years. We're going to have her on one of the upcoming episodes, so you guys stay tuned. Her story is really fascinating. And check out some of her work on our website. But Trinket does a lot of 3D tattooing where she can really do this great detailed animation of nipples. So for patients who have had to have mastectomies and had their breasts removed. And now we're able with filler to go back in and create a little bit of texture in that area, a little bit of a raised area as well, which in the past, we were not really thinking about. And so now we have that patient population that may want a little bit of texture along with the color and the repigmentation. And so, or if it's somebody has an inverted nipple or none at all and they want them to be larger, we can certainly do that.
Yeah. I guess we're working our way down the body.
Yeah, we can work our way down the body.
Maybe elbows.
Elbows, yeah, that's an interesting one. So it would take quite a bit of the hyaluronic acid filler. It's certainly possible, and if there's any kind of scarring or maybe some lax tissue in that area. Personally, instead of using hyaluronic acid filler kind of in elbows and knees, I like to use more of the biostimulants or PDO thread. So we can use something like our Sculptra, which again, you guys hear me talk about all the time. I love it from Galderma. It's a biostimulant that's really going to help create your own collagen. So we have really great results when we use Sculptra in that area. But we could use some hyaluronic acid filler to provide a little bit of tissue support. It just may be quite a few vials.
Yeah, we kind of missed a huge area, and talking about Kaha or radius is one of the areas that's very popular is the décolleté. And so it's really common in female population, especially women with breasts that are side sleepers or just because of sun damage in that area, that you get the crepey skin in that area. And this filler or biostimulant works really well in that area. We've also had several patients that we used the hyper-diluted in the lateral upper arms just to correct crepey skin.
Yeah, and we can also do a lot of these things in the neck as well, so for those horizontal necklines. But I would say that's a pretty common. So we're talking about, more strange and unusual. So I thought about neck, but then I thought, well, I guess we really have to talk about that because that's fairly common. Do you use it anywhere ever in the fingers or hands?
Yeah, hands are common. So we have hand treatments at the clinic where we do a combination of CO2 therapy resurfacing for the hands, and also revolumization. And typically we either use one of the Galderma products. Restylane Lift is very common in that area, and also Radius, which is the biostimulant that we were just talking about, CAHA, that's very popular in that area. And so using both of those, we've gotten good results. Most of the time it does take a repeated treatment, but I think you get the best treatment using the dermal fillers when you also correct the texture, whether you do that with one of the lasers or I love VI Peel also for the hands.
Yeah, and again, going back to strange areas for filler, let's get to the juicy topic. So where are the most risque areas that you've been asked to inject filler?
So we have been asked to inject for labia for vaginal rejuvenation, because with hormone changes, a lot of times you lose that juicy appearance, youthful appearance in the vaginal area. And then you can probably talk from a personal basis about penile filler.
Yeah, he is so crazy. I have not. Anybody that knows me knows how averse.
Chris is doing good to get.
Yeah, I'm doing good to get
treatment.
Dysport treatment. Yeah, I hate needles, so I definitely have not. But I mean, in all reality,
it's not uncommon.
I was going to say it's not an uncommon request, and we do keep patients very comfortable. They don't really complain about pain as much as that. It's some of the laser treatments for the face, but I'm still a baby and not willing to try a lot of these things.
Yeah,
but for females, I think it's a good point that you were bringing up. So for the labia, really, they can kind of get deflated over time, and I don't think people think about really rejuvenating that area. But we can put fillers there, we can put PRP there, we can do a mixture of the two. You can do some laser in that area to kind of improve the appearance or tighten up the skin. So definitely with the changes that you see with aging or the hormonal changes and kind of some of the atrophy or shrinking of the tissue in that area, filler is a great way that we can replace that. And then I know we're not gonna leave this podcast episode without you talking about penile filler. You guys can look back at our prior episodes. We did a whole episode and we really delved a lot into this on when is big too big. And that one got a lot of traction, a lot of views. Then we had our friend Danielle McGraw from down at Renew Med Spa down in
Walton Beach.
Yeah, and we love Danielle, and we had she did a whole segment on penile filler.
And she's had a lot of luck and a lot of success stories. So I think that we've pretty much covered like head to,
and so I mean I want to make sure that doesn't come across, because I know you don't mean it like this. She has had a lot of good results. So not luck, that not bad results, because Danielle's a great provider. So she's very skilled and talented, and not that she's just lucky doing this, but she's a really talented and she's had very good results.
Very good results, sorry. But I'd rather be lucky than good. So.
I want a little luck on my side as well. I just want to make sure if Danielle's listening out there, she knows that we think she's a phenomenal provider.
Kind of going back to, we're talking about dermal fillers, I know, but with the female like vaginal rejuvenation, I think that's something that's pretty big right now that used to be so taboo that people didn't realize that it was available. And we won't get too much into it because we have another episode, but using PRP combination, PRP standalone, injecting the clitoris with it.
So yeah, it's really, I find it kind of fascinating, and hopefully in the either later this season or beginning of our season 2 that we're going to start filming pretty soon, we're going to be able to get a guest on here that is one of the OB gynecologists that has went into aesthetics. And it's interesting because their society has taken official stances against things that focus on the aesthetics of the vaginal area. And they definitely have their own strong opinions from these societies on what should and shouldn't be done. So it's a little bit controversial that people are even offering these services. I can tell you that talking to our colleagues and friends, and for sure for listening to our patients, it's something that's in high demand. And so I think you need to know the risk of the procedures that you're performing, make that plan with your patient, make sure that you have some plan should an emergency situation arise. How are you going to handle that? Know the potential harms. But a lot of the societies, I don't know if they're behind the times. I don't know why they're so opposed to this. I can tell you some of my gynecology colleagues that I've spoken to on this feel that it's because there's not a lot of big pharma or money to be made from the pharmaceutical side of things. And so because of that they're kind of opposed to this. So it doesn't get talked about a lot. And I think we can have a whole entire episode. And like I said, I really would like to have one of our good friends on in the future. We just have, we got to get that booked, and we got to get the technology so we can have somebody call in remotely.
Yeah. The other thing is, like, I think safety. When like, we can never say that enough. And regardless of whether you're injecting foreheads, noses, penis, or labia, like, safety is should be at the forefront of every injector's goal. Like, we want optimal goals for our outcomes for our patient. The end result is to provide a safe treatment for the patient. So
we talked about hyaluronic acid fillers, which are the gel fillers that can be reversed, that's in our body. And we talked a little bit about biostimulants. What are your thoughts about biostimulants in the penis or in the labia, in the vagina?
My personal thoughts are that there's an increased risk for granulomas, and I think that tissue's small, is so much thinner in that area that I personally would prefer to use an HA. And I'd also prefer to use an HA just because of the ability to reverse the outcome of this undesirable.
Yeah, so I like personally the fact that it can be reversed should we have a complication in either of those areas with the hyaluronic acid. But our friend and colleague, Dr. John Leonardo up in Canada, he does tons of penile enhancement procedures, and he's using diluted radius in many of his. And so we've kind of followed his work, and he's had some really great results as well. So it definitely opens my mind to the ideas that there are other ways to do things out there. And so there are providers that are doing these biostimulant fillers. Again, from my standpoint, at this point in time, I feel safer with HA fillers. I don't know how my opinion on that will evolve in the future as more people do this, but right now, I also stick with the HA fillers that we can reverse.
Right. I need to take a trip to Canada and train with John.
Yeah, he's been saying that. And so, we'll have to get him up there and do a training. So you would enjoy that.
Yep.
We hope you guys have learned something new and that you're now not afraid to try filler in some unconventional places. If you have any questions about filler in any non-traditional area, feel free to book a consult with us, go online. We're happy to answer your questions. Thanks again for tuning in this week to another episode of Beauty in the Brain. We look forward to seeing you next week.
See you soon.